You know, there are so many things to debunk in so little time, so I thought I'd consult you on what you think would be a next video or a direction to go in. And so there's a whole spectrum of things that I could go after. I mean, I've still got a load of stuff to do with this thermal camera, and one of the ones which I've got which looks quite fun was I was recently on vacation and they had a sauna. So when you come out of the sauna and go into a cold shower, what does that look like in the infrared? Also, you see the blood circulation patterns. It's really weird. Anyway, so I could do something like that. Or it turns out Anita Sarkeesian's again going with the tropes versus women in video games, and the whole thing is basically one giant cherry pick, in that she says that, you know, men in video games, they're only one body type, whereas, sorry, men in video games are all body types, which is just complete bullshit. I mean, you just type it into a search and, you know, men in video games, there's basically one body type for men in video games. I mean, what she really means is there's one specific video game. There is actually a bigger array of male characters than female characters in terms of body types. But again, that's bloody obvious. I mean, anyway, so I could do something on that. There's actually a lot more on that I could do. Oh, and then there's this other billionaire, not Musk, he's the guy who made the 5-hour energy drink and basically became an overnight billionaire. And he, being a sort of fairly philanthropic chap, decided he was basically going to give the money away. So he was going to give it's a lot of money, he was going to give $1 billion away. And so, yes, it's true that the 5-hour energy drink made him a billionaire. But that doesn't mean that the rest of his ideas are sane. And so he had all these ideas about using human power to basically power the third world. And you do some back of the envelope calculations. Fucking well, I mean, it's just you can just do the little back of an envelope calculation, show a little petrol generator would be a far better way of doing things than his proposed, you know, we'll get people on pedal bikes to power the third world. Anyway, so yeah, but he was going to spend billions of dollars he was talking about giving away. So it's this thing, just because someone gets rich with one thing, that doesn't mean that they're a genius, right? So anyway, there's that. Oh God, I mean, it's been on the back burner forever, but you're doing something about encyclopedia. I'm tempted to call it Dramatica, but it's not. It's Rational Wiki, and God, do they hate me. But you know, so they've labelled me a STEM lord. You know, they've actually turned science, technology, engineering, and math into a vice. So there's that. Oh God, there's this guy called Professor Moriarty. You not the Holmes character, but a guy from Nottingham. And he's forever been trying to say, oh, let's have a debate about how there are more men in physics than women, because he's got into his head that I mean, the whole thing is basically based around one single straw man, which is, he says that my position is the only factor that accounts for the diversity of men and women in physics is sexual dimorphism. And it's like, no. Yeah, I mean, obviously there are social factors as well, but I mean, so his whole shtick is based on that. Anyway, so he emailed me about, oh God, 5 months ago or something now, saying, you know, let's have a debate. And I was really busy at the time because, you know, occasionally I go off to these reactors and I do the experiments, and those are crazy busy. You know, it's quite literally, you make samples, you run experiments, you eat and you sleep. I mean, there is no free time in the schedule whatsoever. You're doing it basically 24/7. And so, you know, that's when he starts writing me all these emails, and you know, most of them are just like this verbose sort of story about how busy his life is, which it's like, keep it short, guy. Anyway, so after I basically said, yeah, sure, come back to me in a few months and we'll talk about it. And he just goes on and on and on. So eventually I just, fuck it, I'll just troll the guy. And it got really quite comical towards the end, to the point where he was writing like pages and pages of text, and I was just like, bleh, on the keyboard, and he would go off again. And eventually I had to create a spam folder for him because he was emailing me so much. And yeah, so periodically I see that the number in the spam folder sort of creeped up a bit. But he's now actually, right, so this is a professor who likes to berate people for acting like grown-ups and all that sort of thing. And who has he done a collaboration with but Kevin Logan? Kevin Logan. Yeah, the guy who actually thought, Thunderfoot's dad's dying of cancer. Let's rag on him while his dad's quite literally on his deathbed. That's the guy that Moriarty's got in bed with. Anyway, so I could do something with that. But, you know, realistically, these folks ought to realise that for the large part, I don't debate enemies, I bury them. I mean, you only have to, most of it's not actually due to my own doing at all. It's, they're pretty good at finishing themselves off. I mean, you just take a look at the history of the people who I've mixed it up with. How many of them are still around? I mean, just taking recent history of the ones who were scoping for my job. There was, who was there? There was, Fatso, what was he called? Yeah, they're all fat, I know. Hannibal the Victor, that's right. You know, I will hunt you down and get you if it's the last thing I ever do. It turns out he was had been, you know, doing something with underage girls or something. Then there was Laughing Witch, who, you know, there's nothing that people can do for me. Yeah, she sort of quit, and it turned out she was going bankrupt. So one of them basically turned out to be a sexual predator. One of them basically got screwed over doing exactly what she was trying to do to other, but actually it turns out they were going bankrupt anyway. And there was a Jenny McDermott. It turns out that she did actually get fired for what she did online, having sort of said, you know, if you get fired for what you do online, that's your fault. And who gets fired for doing what she did online? Yeah, she did. Oh, and then there was recently this guy called Unseen Perfidy, who had been, I mean, he'd hated me forever. And it turns out there were these chat logs that were released, you know, the Crash Overdrive, We Must Stop Harassment network, founded and funded by Feministfrequency money. And, oh boy, who would have thought that the people who are saying we must stop cyberbullying are actually the biggest cyberbullies out there. And yeah, this one guy, Rob, who, like I was saying, he's been trying Unseen Perfidy. He hated me forever. Turns out that he had actually been using this anti-harassment network to harass women, and, you know, using his mental instability as basically an emotional hook to allow him to sexually harass women or something like that. I mean, it's either way, he deleted all of his accounts and vanished. So it's kind of like what Hannibal the Victor did. Yeah. Oh, and of course, he was also in this Crash Overdrive network thing about how he wants to get my Patreon shut down, and, you know, I'm going to get a big file on Thunderfoot and I'm going to send it to Patreon and get him banned. And, oh my God, look, first of all, it's kind of, so they've scoped for my Patreon, they've scoped for my YouTube channel, and they've scoped for my job, right? And this is, by the way, this is not the reason why I've not done so much on feminism recently. It's just, for me, I actually kind of like doing the sciencey stuff, yeah. And the feminism, yeah, it corrodes things like science in the same way as creationism does. You know, they put on the mantle of, oh, I have my gender studies degree, therefore I'm a scientist. Yes, indeed. Or is it? That's the other one that Moriarty hangs around with, Kirsty Winters. You know, she's a political scientist, which she assures me is a real scientist. Or Richard Carrier. And you just couldn't make this stuff up. So I mean, the guy's got a real ego on him. I mean, usually the more people tell people that they're, you know, I'm Dr. Carrier, the more they come out with that sort of stuff, the more they're overcompensating. And so he describes his own work as an intentional tour de force, and that's right, he was going to be the intellectual, this is how he described himself, is he would be the intellectual artillery for atheism plus. That's when atheism had this sort of, split where they claimed that they were going to get rid of all the misogynists and the haters, and they were going to have a good new atheism with social justice values. And I mean, it was almost stillborn. But, Carrier was right there at the beginning about how he was going to be their intellectual artillery. And I think now officially Atheism Plus is completely dead. Even their forum is no more. So, yeah, that really worked out well for you with your Atheism Plus, didn't it, guys? Anyway, so about that time of that split, that's when I briefly joined and then left. Well, was kicked off Free Thought Blogs. And it's kind of funny, right? So when I was kicked off, I actually had comparable traffic to the whole of Free Thought Blogs. And here we are years later, and my traffic's gone up by a factor of about 5, and theirs has gone down by about a factor of 5 or something. So, yeah, also, that worked out well for you, didn't it, guys? Throwing out the misogynists. Anyway, so Carrier actually cropped up with that as well. He actually was claiming that Free Thought's blog's traffic had been completely static. And what he actually meant was his blog's traffic had basically been static, and it was pathetic. It was absolutely nothing. Anyway, so that was his proof that Free Thought blog's traffic hadn't decreased. Whereas you look at any of the statistics, you'll see that basically the thing's been in monotonic decline since it was founded. So yeah, he also, about the time I was kicked off Free Thought blogs, he wrote this. Oh God, it was huge. It wasn't quite over 9,000, but it was getting up there. He wrote this huge article on why, is Thunderfoot a sociopath? And, about how all my radical ideas about, innocent till proven guilty, no, you don't need it. That's just internalized misogyny or something. Anyway, so the hilarious point after that is, he gets accused of sexual harassment, and he gets banned from this conference and that conference and taken off this and that speakers list. And then, would you believe it, he actually gets cease and desist letters sent to the the woman claiming that she was sexually harassed. So basically, you couldn't make this stuff up, right? When the same thing basically happened to Michael Shermer. They were all, let's lynch him. I mean, the accusation has been made. What more evidence do we need? And so basically all of Free Thought blogs was there. Yeah, let's burn Michael Shermer, just on the accusation alone. And if he tries to defend himself, then he's just bullying the victim. And so what does Carrier do? Well, he bullies the victim. He sends cease and desist letters and threatens to sue almost everyone. Then he leaves Free Thought blogs, which I think, he was so, yeah, Richard Carrier, another one of these guys who starts off with, I just care about women's rights and well, what do you know? He's now accused, I think it was multiple times as well, of sexual harassment. So it's just, so what else could I do? Oh God, I mean, there's just an infinite amount of things. I mean, I've got an oxygen generator next door, so I've been thinking of trying to work out which French fries contain the most energy. You know, just burning things in a pure oxygen atmosphere. So I've got this big ass tank, fill it up with pure oxygen, burn stuff in it, which actually looks pretty cool. And and then there's an oxyacetylene torch, so oxypropane. So I was thinking, which coins have the highest melting point? Because that's the sort of fun thing that you can do with a thermal camera and oxypropane. So Sarkeesian's first video about women in history is going to come out shortly. So I was thinking of making some sort of kind of spoof, but yeah, unsung heroes from men in history. So yeah, I don't think you see it, but one of the carriers up here is the Hornet, which was from the Doolittle raid. Doolittle was a remarkable man. No, not the one who talked to animals. He did a load of stuff in World War II. Quite a fascinating chap. Oh, and while I remember, so this is a sort of morning after the night before at the moment. Every now and again I'll go get shit-faced and go dancing, that sort of thing. And then quite often the next day, at the moment I'm shower fresh, everything is fine. But if I overdo it a bit too much, it's like, I just don't want to do anything. And it was on a recovery session like that years ago that I actually sort of sat down and I got you thinking, this was way back when I was just starting out on YouTube. And the thought occurs to me, everyone kind of makes God in their own image. So if an atheist were to create a religion, what would it look like? So I actually sat down and I wrote this, in this sort of quiet, morning after the night before type thing. I wrote this religion, and it's called the Great Space Vegetable. And I thought it would be lost forever. And then whilst cleaning out this old hard drive, I came across the Great Space Vegetable, and I read it again, and I think it's actually pretty good. So this is religion for atheists. Yeah, what would God look like for a scientist, for an atheist, that sort of thing. And so I was thinking, yeah, I might actually now that my video editing skills are a lot better, actually make that into a video, because that's kind of fun. Yeah, so the religion would be, it's called the Great Space Vegetable, so Great Space Vegetabilism. And I really ought to mix it up with the Black Lives Matter people again sometime, because some of those folks are just batshit crazy. And they're spreading as well, so now they've actually made it to England, where the Black Lives Matter protesters shut down one of the runways at Heathrow. And the funny thing was that all of the Black Lives Matter protesters were white. So it was one of these things that they call it virtue signaling, that you don't really care about the cause, but you care that people see that you care about the cause. And so yeah, they're all rich, middle class, white folks protesting about how Black Lives Matter. And I mean, meaning to get back to them ever since that, what was it, the Mizzou thing. Because, just after they claimed their first scalp, they got the president of whatever, they came out, all of these Black Lives Matter things just sort of exploded after that. And they had all these universities and great lists of demands of what the university should do. And, oh God, I mean, you could just read them. They're their own comedy. So, not quite as bad as, we demand our own water fountains, black-only water fountains on campus. But it's that sort of caliber. So, I'm not going to leave this quite as a blank slate of what video do you think I should do next, because the internet's spoken on that sort of thing before. You'll just get, Hitler did nothing wrong, we'll have 2,000 thumbs up. So yeah, put that comment in there now. Make a video about how Hitler did nothing wrong and put 2,000 thumbs up by it. But now, of the things I've actually discussed, what do you think that I should make a video on next.